Hi guys, it's Jeannie Vaden. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Really happy to have you back with me again. This is the second video that I'm doing on painting a steampunk bird. This is what I've got so far on my bird, and if you missed the first video, please go to my playlist and look for steampunk genre, and you will see that first video that I did. Now I have painted on this since I saw you on that last video. I've done some layering and just some detail work. And what I thought I'd like to show you now is how to do this little watch hanging down that the bird's holding in his beak. And then also this gauge. It's a gauge. I was trying to think of what that was called in the last video. And it's a gauge. Now I like to look for examples of these old objects that can be included in a steampunk theme. So here's just a download of some watches, and I have lots more, and I don't often copy exactly the object, but I rather get ideas from them. And I also have some gauges. So on this one, I really love the coloring on this one, but I like some of the details on this one. So I'm going to kind of go back and forth between those two. And I think what I'll do is I'll go ahead and start with the gauge, and then I'll work on the watch, and we'll get as much done as I can without making this too long of a video. Here's my palette. As you recall, it's got the Permanent Rose, the Winsor Orange, and the Thalo Turquoise, and I'll have those listed down in the description box in case you didn't catch those. And then I've done mixtures of the Permanent Rose and the Thalo Turquoise, Winsor Orange, and then I've got the Permanent Rose hanging out over there. Haven't done too much with that. More these mixes that I'm using in this one. I'm using my Simmons White Sable brushes. This is a number 8. And that seems to be the one I'm using the most now. I really like the size and the shape of this. These brushes, they're not expensive brushes, but they're really nice for my techniques, and I really enjoy working with them. I'm going to just dampen part of this gauge, and then I'll start bringing some color into it. For the claws here, what I used was the Winsor Orange and the Thalo Turquoise, which makes an interesting gold, which I really like. I used the same thing for the beak, same thing for the stripes on the vest. And then I used some accent darks with using the Thalo Turquoise and the Permanent Rose mixed together to make a violet. And so that really complements and shadows that in nicely. Okay, so let's just start. I'm going to start with a little light glaze, working from this grade violet, which is the again the Permanent Rose mixed with the Thalo Turquoise. So oftentimes when I'm doing my other types of paintings, I'm not mixing on the palette. But for this type of painting, I like mixing to get these nice neutral colors rather than using the brighter colors. That's got a little more permanent rose. I hope you can see that. I noticed in the other video that my phthalo turquoise didn't show up as being turquoise. It just kind of looked gray, but it really is a very nice, beautiful turquoise color. Then I'm going to come in with some green. And that's the Winsor Orange mixed with the phthalo turquoise. Just see how my brain's working or not working here as I paint. I've got a little more Winsor Orange in this. It's going to take it down to more of a gold color. I'm just negative painting right now around the claws of the bird. Now I've got more permanent rose mixed in here. It has some of the phthalo turquoise in it too. Look at that nice, oh, love it, love it, love it. Beautiful rainbowy kind of wash. Let's bring some more of that gold in there. You can go over some of the pieces of the claws. It's okay. And then let's come over here on this side. Take some of that phthalo turquoise. You could see the color a little bit better now. It's almost pure phthalo turquoise there. So I hope you can see that. You never know with lighting and cameras, to get the exact color is sometimes a little difficult. Now I've got the permanent rose mixture with the phthalo turquoise. More phthalo turquoise. I'm even thinking right off hand that I'd like to add a little more phthalo turquoise in there. You can do that while it's wet, but you don't want to do that as it starts to dry, probably, because you'll end up with blossoms on your painting. Some blossoms are okay, but sometimes you just don't want those. So let's come back in here, just behind the bird's leg and claw, her foot. A little bit of that turquoise. Oops. A little excited and splashy there. Kind of neaten up some of my edges. Okay. And I think I'm just going to let that sit. I don't want to have any really light lights, I don't think, on this. Kind of debating. Maybe a little bit right up in here. This is starting to dry. So if I run my damp brush through here, I can get a little bit of a highlight. And maybe a little bit a highlight in here too. Wonder if I just do some kind of strokes That might add a nice little texture to that. Just dot in a little bit of water to get some different texture. Maybe run a little bit of pigment, heavier pigment, just along this edge. Yeah, like that. Do that on over here too. Might be nice. So I thought I was gonna stop and work on the watch, but instead take advantage of this damp paint and just add a little bit more color here and there. Let's come through here. This part right here is completely dry. This part's wet, so, you know, kind of keep an eye on what's happening. And you can also just dampen that a little bit so that it softens out. This is kind of more equal with what's happening over here. I think a hard edge down here is okay. Maybe I'll just soften that spot up a little bit. Let's see. I'm actually having so much fun with this painting. I hope some of you will try something like this and let me know if you enjoy it as much as I am. I've done a lot of these, so don't be disappointed if your first one is a little bit more of a struggle. Actually, when you're making this kind of thing up and you don't have something like a photo that you're working from exactly, sometimes that's a little bit difficult for me. I don't know if it is for you or not, but you know, just trying to decide where you want, what colors, what your values are going to be, how dark in the background, how light, you know, that those kinds of decisions are really pretty difficult when you don't have, when you're just working out of your brain. Okay, so let's do this little watch, and I'm just going to pull out my photo. I think I'll pull it out of the plastic. I think it'll be easier for you guys to see. And I'm gonna fold it here and here and here. And I'm just kind of working from this little image, kind of just to get a general feel for it. I don't know. Can you see that? I wonder if you can see that. I'll put my something on there to kind of hold it down. So we have a little chain, which I kind of went from this image for the chain. It's not exact, it's not precise, but it's just that kind of, that type of chain. I use the kind of the top of this watch for my reference on this, but then I use the face of this watch for the face of the clock. So kind of bouncing back and forth there. Now what I'm deciding now is whether to go gold with the watch or silver with the watch, and to get gold I'll want to use the Winsor Orange. To get silver I'll want to use the permanent Rose and the Thalo Turquoise. So let's see here. I think the gold. Maybe sort of a silver gold, not a bright gold. So, okay, so I'm going to, this brush is a little bit large. Let's go down a size. I don't even like this brush. Let's start with this little brush. This is a silver black velvet. It's a number 4. It's got a nice point on it. Since I'm working pretty small here, I think this might be a better choice. Okay, so let's go here. And when I do this, I want to leave some little highlights. So I'm going to leave the white of the paper in some areas to make it look like it's shiny. Just pulling that around. Right around here. I'll leave a little highlight over there and then one over here too. I would have had trouble with that big brush, wouldn't I have? That would have been a bad choice. Okay. This, whoops, I'm sort of mumbling here. I'm sorry about that. Sometimes it's super hard to keep your mind on your painting and speak about what you're doing as well. At least I find it a little hard. So just watch and I'll paint for a minute and get the bases down for this little clock. I'm going to go over the whole face of the clock because I want it to appear to be a little bit shadowy. Same thing as I did with the gauge down below. And I'm adding a variety of color as well. I'm leaving some white spots, some light areas. There. I'm going to dry my brush and just wick out a little bit of the moisture that's on my page here. Take some turquoise on my brush, take out a little bit of the moisture, and I'm just going to drop it in a couple of spots. I'm going to do the same thing with the permanent rose. I'm going to drop in a little bit of permanent rose here and there. Hope you can see that. I did find, when I was working on the bird, found that by mixing this phthalo turquoise and permanent rose and then adding the Winsor Orange, a little bit of the Winsor Orange to that, came up with a neat brown color. The more red that's in there, the more kind of brown it goes. The more blue that's in there, the more gray it goes. So I think I'm going to add a little bit of that color into my watch as well. Maybe over on this side. Just touching little bits. Something like that. Now I'm going to let that sit for just a second, and I'm going to come back with my Robert Simmons. This is the White Sable, and it's a number 6. I'm going to come back in with that, and you can see on my example that there's a nice highlight right on the glass of the clock or watch. And what I want to do is, when this surface is matte, not shiny, but matte, I'm going to come in and I'm just kind of watching to see. And what I want to do is come in to this area and just lighten that up. But by doing that when it's damp, I get a soft light rather than these little guys, which are hard-edged light. Does that make sense? I hope so. You guys can't answer me. I wish you were here and you could answer me. Okay, so I think that's good for now. I do see there's a couple little lumpy bumps over here. Maybe I can kind of gently sort of soften those out without spoiling the watch. I don't like those bumps. Okay, that's good. Okay, and I saved the little top of the beanie for you guys. And I think what would be fun to do, since I don't have any other areas where I've used the permanent rose, I thought I would use just the permanent rose for that area. So let's see how that looks. If I don't like it, I can always come and change it up a little bit. So here we go. Do we like it red or permanent rose? I think so. I think I do. Let's take a little bit of the Thalo Turquoise. I've got it, it's fairly heavy pigment, and I'm just going to touch it right in to the center area to give it a little bit more of a shadow. Let me try that. How about right in there? How about right in there? That's cute. I like that. Drop a little bit of that right in there and right here. It gives us some nice shadows. Let's see. I'm not liking the exact shape of the hat, so I'm going to bring this edge out just a touch. There. That's better. Let's go into the eye. That sounded weird. Let's go into the eye. Okay, and I'm going to paint right, and I'm still using this little tiny silver black velvet brush. I'm painting around the highlight, just darkening this eye up a bit. And this is just using the Thalo Turquoise and a little bit of permanent rose. So it almost looks black, but not quite. And then I'm going to take my Winsor Orange, permanent rose and this violet, and I'm making another kind of rich brown color. So it's cool on top, and then I'm going to bring some warm color at the bottom here of the eye. Lifting a little extra moisture out, and I'm going to do that, bring that warm color in one more time. Going to go around the eyelid here and down here to make a circle around the eye. And I'm going to kind of come around the eye and it kind of I think sort of a flowery look, which could be just something mechanical around the eye, but sort of like little petals going all the way around. There we go. There we go. It's not perfect, but kind of cool. I like that. I'm going to bring that same color right in here, just darkening. That's pretty fun. I'm going to darken under the beanie's hat, the bill of the hat. I did these little kind of feathery things under his throat yesterday, but you guys didn't get to see it. So let me show you how I do those. I have my drawing, so I have these kind of feathery shapes underneath his neck, and what I did was I came in on each one of those and I brought a little color in and then dampened down below and just touched up so I had dark to light on each of those, dark to light, dark to light, dark to light, and so on. Let's do a couple more of those. Let's go right up under his bill. Right here. Damp brush, but clean water on that. There we go. Oops. Ah. There we go. Got rid of that. I love doing this stuff. It requires quite a bit of patience, but it's so much fun, and so it's really different than the way I normally work. Just working from my imagination, creating little shapes, little shadows, textures, all of that. Super fun for me. I think come here, and I'm going to just make a dark line here Whenever you're doing, if you haven't been told this, by the way, probably a lot of you know it, whenever you're trying to make a straight line, bring the line towards you. So you don't want to go this way, but you want to go down toward you. It'll help you make a nicer, straighter line. I'm resting my wrist on the paper, which helps. You can also put your hand underneath or use your little finger to help steady your hand. Then you just kind of want to move fairly decisively when you do that. There. I think I like that. I liked it the way it was before too, but okay, let's take my Simmons White Sable and just soften out a couple of those little edges. Maybe I like this. Okay, those are okay. Maybe bring a little bit more shadowing just right under here to separate those areas out, and then I'll soften that up. So just come here with a clean, damp brush down in here and just let that float out or soften. Okay, I think I can come back in on the gauge. So let's go back to that. Let's pull that over here. Let's see that other one too. Okay. I'm going to come back in here and add a little bit more pigment and color. I'm just deciding kind of where to go. So you notice I'm only going right up to this area. This claw is kind of coming over that edge. I wonder if I just paint right over that. Let's try this. I'll let it sit for a second. Bringing some of that gold in, that's the Winsor Orange and the Thalo Turquoise. And then once this soaks up a little bit more of the water, take a clean, damp brush, move right up into that, and right down the claw here. And I think that'll work okay. And then I'm going to bring in a couple little highlights again. Right in there. Right down here, I'll bring a little bit of color. And let's do a little bit more of that gold right in there. How about a little gold up in here too? I think I might like that. I'm gonna save this a little bit and work over on this side of the gauge. Let's take this little tiny brush, the silver black velvet again. Let's be kind of precise around this claw. That's good. And right in here. And right in here as well. So I don't mind if this one gets a little bit lost, but this one in the foreground, I want to keep that pretty distinct. Okay, let's go back here. Take a little bit of this kind of brown color. Some of the gold. Let those all mingle together. Got some just phthalo turquoise. I'm going to bring that even down into the gauge here. We'll have kind of a shadowy effect. Remember, this is all a process, so I worked a little differently on that side, but I'll even it up as I go. Now I'm just softening that, and I'm going to bring a little bit of that right in between these claws on the bird's foot, and some of that gray. So I wonder if some of you are enjoying trying to mix your color rather than just buy a tube color. I really enjoy it. I know there's a tube color for everything you could possibly paint, but it's kind of fun to mix your own colors and to use these really limited palettes. And can you believe that this is only 3 colors? I think it's a really neat combination. Now we want this to kind of match and this to kind of match here, so it looks like the the bird's foot is going over a continuous object. So I see I've got it a little bluer here and a little more orange gold in here. So I'm going to change that up a little bit. But first, what I'm going to do is just bring in some clear water, touch up into that area that I just painted. Let that soften out and join that with this area over here on the left. Kind of neaten that up a little bit, and then I'll bring the gold in over here. Just a little bit, and that'll make that continuity kind of flow around. Okay, I'm going to let that dry. I think I'm going to let that dry. Maybe I'll just do just a little bit of highlighting here. Let's do that. And how about right in here? That's still slightly damp, so you can see that as I run my brush, I hope you can see, as I run my brush here, along here, it just lifts a little bit of that pigment out. Gives us a little bit more value variation. Let's try a little of that over here too. That's good. And maybe a little back in here. Good. We won't worry about that area up there. There's a little bit of bird shadow maybe up in there anyway. Let's look at, I'm going to save the chain, by the way. I'm not going to do the chain until I do some work in the background, but I do want to finish up, or at least get a little further on the watch. So here's our watch again. Let's come in and darken this outside. Oh, that's confusing. That dark. Let's darken that outside edge. We'll leave a little bit of light, and then we'll darken some of the center in there. You'll notice I don't come in and do my numbers or the hands of the clock or anything until I get all of my basic values for the clock and the gauge kind of settled in. I'm going to take the permanent rose and the Winsor or Thalo Turquoise. That's going to dull down some of my gold. And I'm going to come out here along this outer edge and darken that. And in there, I'm not going to make it too decorative. I think I'll just make it basically smooth. There we go. And a little bit up in here as well. Maybe a little thinner line. I'll try for that. There we go. A little bit in here to separate the winding mechanism from the rest of the clock. A little bit in here. And I also like to do kind of like little lines in the winding mechanism. That's always fun. Yeah. I've got a mixture of all three colors now. I'm going to come in side the where the glass is, where the glass and the metal meet here. Right in here. And darken that up. especially up top here, a little bit down in here too. These kinds of things are so much fun to do. They're so rewarding, I think. I mean, it's probably not for everybody, but I just think they're really fun to do. I never realized how much fun doing mechanical objects was. I've always been more of a portrait girl, but these things are just so much fun. And there's something different from some of my other types of painting, which is fun too. I'm just adding a little bit of clear water in here, and I'm going to come back in and I'm going to bring a little bit more of the permanent rose. That was a lot, actually. Oh, but I like it so much. And this is the gold. We'll bring a little bit of that over in here. Just touch on the outside edge. Soften that. So the face of the watch is damp, and so it allows the color to just kind of float out like that. I'm loving that so much. Soften that again. Leave this part light where that reflection is. And let's call that good. Yeah. Okay, so back to the gauge. Do a little bit more, and then I'm gonna upload this video, and then I'll do another one on my background and finishing touches. Okay, so I'm gonna take this area of the gauge, and we're going to bring some shadows in up in here, but none of the numbers yet. Just a little bit more time for that to happen. So the Thalo Turquoise, I'm going to bring in right along this edge. So I'm separating the metal area of the gauge from the glass area. And I hope that's pretty even. Let's see, I think I'll bring that up just a touch. Right in there. Negative painting around the bird's claw again. You could, if you wanted to, put masking fluid on the claws so you didn't have to come in and negative paint around that every time you came in. I decided not to do that, but you certainly could. I like the Thalo Turquoise, and then I'm going to go in with permanent rose right up against that. And bring it right around over here. Then the gold. The gold is the, again, probably don't need to keep telling you. It's the Winsor Orange and the Thalo Turquoise. Let's bring, I'm going to mix the Thalo Turquoise with the Winsor Orange, but make it more of a green color. And just touch that into a couple spots. edge right there. Permanent rose back in here. So we have that separation of the metal from the gauge itself. And we have that beautiful variety of color going in there, similar to the little watch, but still none of the detail. And let's also bring a little bit of highlight, kind of in the same area that the watch highlight is, right up in here. Let's do that same, about that same thing right in here, kind of right in there, just to give a little bit of sense of light hitting that. Is that enough? Might be enough. Look over here. Maybe just a little bit more, and let it come down a little bit. I'm loving this blue. I'm tempted to take some of it and dull it down, but then I'm telling myself, no, just leave it. I'll bring a little dark in there since I feel like I need to do something. Let's bring a little dark in here as well. Using this giant brush, I don't need to do that. Here, let's use this one to be more precise. And let's take and even this up just a little bit right in there. Okay, I think that's probably enough for now. I'll come back to you in another, at least one more video to show you a little more of the process and what I'm going to do with this background, which is, I'm just really not sure. Have some ideas, so I'm going to think about that a little bit more, and I'll be back to you. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thanks for watching. Hope you subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye, everyone.